Welcome, FNews57 here. Once again, we're back on Diablo 4 on the Xbox Series X, and today I'm bringing you yet another achievement guide. This is going to be for one of the most annoying achievements in the DLC, and I did not see a lot of information, so I will be fully explaining the best way to get the Infernal Jungle Achievement. It's a 100 Gamerscore rare achievement, the second rarest one out of all of the DLC achievements or trophies, and you do need to have access to the DLC in order to get into this area. So, what you must do is collect 10,000 abhorrent cinders in, I don't know how you want to pronounce that, Nahantu Helltides. That is the new zone, and it has a 0.17% unlock rate. Basically, you need a Helltide in this area, down here, the DLC area. That is the only one that counts. You can do this solo or with a squad. With a squad is a little bit more efficient. Helltides cycle once every 55 minutes. So 55 minutes active Helltide, 5 minutes downtime, and then a new Helltide in a random region will spawn. And I will leave a link to the website to track the Helltides, just in case you want to do that. Unfortunately, I have not found any consistency with when these Helltides do spawn, but I'm going to show you and give you as many tips to make this as easy as possible, because right now you're going to get a lot of them, and really the only tip that I could find when I looked it up was kill everything, which is kind of basically what we have to do, but we're going to do it a little bit more efficiently. So if you just started the game, this area, the DLC area, will not have Helltides and Whispers until you complete the DLC campaign, and then you do the quest Deeds of a Champion. Once you do that, then you will have access to the Helltide. If you're lower level, you are going to want to simply go in and try to drop it down to as low a difficulty level as possible. This way you can kill enemies faster, because this is all about killing enemies as quickly as you possibly can to go ahead and get cinders. So obviously I'm in Season 6 at the moment, Soulborn is kind of broken, and we have our pet, which you can get back in the starting area and then go to one of the little closets that allows you to change the appearance of your character and cosmetics and stuff. And that is where you will equip the appearance for your pet, and your pet will help pick up cinders for you. So, the basics of a Helltide, and you can use these tricks in any Helltide you want to. It is completely personal preference, but basically you want to kill everything you can as quick as you can, and ideally in other zones you can bounce between events. Events spawn a lot of enemies, a lot of champion and elite enemies, which are going to give you even more cinders. But in the new zone, I'm not super familiar with all the spawn points for the various events, so it can be kind of difficult to bounce around in between the different events to just farm the event's enemies. With that in mind, you have a few different things that you can do specifically in this Helltide in the DLC area. Obviously, we want to open the chests, and they give a bunch of stuff. We'll try not to get hit, and I'm just going to go through and showcase everything. So, a big thing that a lot of folks miss, and that I've seen a lot of folks miss, is they pretty much just run around and murder everything, which is fine, but you also want to pay attention to some of the other little hidden things that a lot of people don't mention. So when we go into a group of enemies and we kill that entire pack, we typically get about 1, maybe 2 cinders if we're lucky, which isn't really that bad, but you get more cinders if you have elites. So like if there's any elites or champion enemies in the pack, you'll notice that my pet is picking up all of the cinders, and we're getting a lot more than just 1 cinder per pack. Obviously, personal preference on what you want to do. One of the best farming things that I have found is this little Hellspire, and I'm going to show you how to farm it and a couple of the other things. Obviously, treasure goblins. If you get treasure goblins and you can kill them, treasure goblins are a great way to go ahead and grab extra cinders. They almost guarantee that they give you cinders, plus sometimes they can give you pretty decent loot, so you might want to prioritize those if you come across any. But something that a lot of people don't interact with is any of these things that you can interact with, like wretched souls or whatnot, and this is really kind of something that's overlooked. I get a lot of extra cinders from these. So if you interact with them and you open them, the regular ones usually do not drop cinders. However, if you find one with a red aura around it, that is like 96% chance it's going to drop cinders. So you see how we have this damned soul right here, and you can kind of see a little red aura around it. Let's interact with it, and bam, there's 3 cinders just like that. And that happens for almost every single one. So keep your eyes out for those, chests, anything that you can interact with. Also, Hellspires, if you find them, and the version of the Devouring Soul Spire, which is very similar to this, what you want to do is you want to stay in the circle. This is where if you have a team, it's a lot easier. Notice how I just exited the circle there slightly, and I barely got any enemies to spawn. If you stay in the circle, it will constantly spawn enemies till it is maxed, and that gives you a lot of extra cinders. So keep that in mind. You can see we can come over here. Obviously we can spend our cinders at chests. I'm not really worried about that just for the purposes of this achievement. I always recommend carrying some keys, the keys for the whispering chests on you. If you're going for this achievement, you don't have to do it all in one run, but you can very easily get about 2,000 cinders per run without actually farming the boss. Now I have a shitload of hearts, so we're going to be farming the boss, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But what you want to do if you want to min-max that for farming the boss, you actually want to farm other Helltides, which is what I did, and then I saved up all of the hearts that I got from the other Helltides, because those do not expire when you either leave a Helltide, die in a Helltide, or simply just the Helltide ends and you go to another one. So the hearts you can take from one Helltide to another Helltide, and by doing that, if you have a couple of people together that have a bunch of hearts, you can literally spend the entire time that you're in the Helltide just farming the boss, which gives you just a ridiculous amount of enemies, constantly spawning elites and champions, so you can get a bunch of cinders very quickly. Now, if you pass anything that says press A, or whatever your interact button keybind is, you're going to want to make sure that you do that, because again, those little interact to save, interact to open, caches, chests, all of that fun stuff, 90% of the time, it drops you a little bit of cinders. And when you tend to interact with one of those items that drop cinders, more often than not, a pack of enemies will also spawn within a couple seconds on top of you. So again, just murder everything, interact with everything, especially if it has that slight red aura around it. And you can see we interacted with that Angel's Breath, a pack of mobs spawned behind us. There's one of those little chests that you can interact with that gives cinders. Basically everything. I was trying to find a whispering chest to show you, but unfortunately whispering chests are pretty hard to find. I think there might be a map that shows their potential spawn locations, but you'll need a key that you get from the Purveyor of Curiosities. I think it's like 10 obols or something. They're very cheap. I always recommend that you have at least a few of those on you, because every time you open those chests, at least in my experience, I've received like 10 cinders. So just in a brief explanation, while we've been going around the map killing stuff, I haven't been with the team, which is bad, because if I was grouped up with my friend Tara right now, we would be pretty much doubling up on our packs of enemies. But I just wanted to go through and explain and show you all of the different stuff that you can do. So if you use those tips, you'll have no problem farming stuff. You can use those tips in other Helltides to farm more cinders, so you can open more chests and get more gear. But keep in mind, for the achievement specifically, only the Helltides in the new area actually count for the achievement. Everything else is just for getting cinders. But if you need cinders, you can use those tips to get more cinders in all of the Helltides that you do. So I'll meet you in a second. I'm going to go ahead and show you where we use the hearts and show you how that farm is done, because that farm will give you the absolute most cinders per minute. Alright, so if you want the most efficient farm for cinders possible, you're going to want to make your way over to one of the 2 accursed ritual sites. Once you have hearts, either from the Helltide you're working on or from other Helltides, it takes 3 of them, and you simply just need to put them in and then murder everything that spawns. If you're playing with other players and you have another player that's somewhat in close proximity to you, they can't be like completely across the map, but if you're near another player, you tend to get more groups of enemies when you're traveling around, which means more elites and champions, because elites and champions tend to drop cinders more than just the regular mobs. I did mention at the beginning of the video to put it on a lower difficulty if you're having trouble on higher torments, because if you can only go through and kill like a couple of enemies and then, you know, you have to back off or restock on potions or whatnot, it's just going to be less efficient. But if you can handle higher torments or torment 4, then definitely put it on the higher difficulty. It's personal preference though at the end of the day. So pretty much we'll just go through this, kill off the Blood Maiden, kill off everything, and make sure that we have all of our pesky little pickups, and then we'll just keep repeating this process. Ideally, when you do this, you have a group, and if you have a group where everybody has, say, like 9 hearts or more, then you're just going to be summoning this boss and murdering everything so quickly. Pretty much you're constantly gathering cinders. Just remember, if your team is split up, unlike in Season 1 and 2, where you could be literally across the map from each other and then just farm enemies and then trade zones and go pick up the other's cinders, you do have to be in relatively close proximity to each other, so that when one player on the team kills an enemy, if it drops a cinder, you can still go and pick up that cinder as well. Again, personal preference, depends on your damage and how comfortable you are with the higher torment levels. You may want to do this on a lower torment level, but you will get less elites and less champions. So you can see here, we pretty much had 500 cinders prior to starting this summoning, and now we have over 700. And that's just from doing the summoning a couple of times. You also get a bunch of gear and stuff and a bunch of XP, so make sure if you're going for the Paragon achievement that you have your elixir, incense, seething opal if you're using the opal, all of that fun stuff active. And you should, if you play out the entire like 55 minutes, if you're really lucky and you notice the Helltide pop up as soon as it starts, you should easily end up with 2,000 of the cinders per Helltide that you do. So we'll be popping the achievement here shortly. At least fingers crossed we should, because I've done several Helltides in testing out these different things. Also, if you get a bunch of treasure goblins, like if you're really lucky and you just get a bunch of treasure goblins, you'll get a ton of cinders from them. So I should have been at 9,000 based on my calculations. And there we go, Infernal Jungle, done. Collect 10,000 aberrant cinders. Told you that's the way to do it. If you don't see the pop-up immediately in the game, but by your calculations you're already at 10,000, then it is a very good idea to simply go to the official club, and you can check your progress on the achievement in the official club. So there's the artwork for it. Relatively easy. Doesn't look the coolest, but a surprisingly easy one to get. Now, of course, keep in mind that you do lose half of your cinders if you die. So I thought I had stealth there, but I didn't. I died, and now I'm down to only 700 cinders. However, I can confirm that spending your cinders and dying does not seem to negatively affect the achievement tracker. Unfortunately, there is no way to track how many cinders you have specifically collected for the DLC area Helltides, so you will have to manually keep track of that and just note, alright, I have so many cinders for the Helltide right before, you know, the Helltide ends. Of course, keep in mind the number that you have spent, and if you have died, whatever the amount of cinders is that you lost. So, once you have your cinders, you can go ahead and spend them to unlock the Helltide chests. It really depends on what you're looking for, what chest you want to unlock. The chest of mysteries that cost 250 cinders is generally the most popular, and there's usually 1 or 2 in each of the zones. So feel free to go ahead and go for those once you have the achievement, or you don't have to mess with Helltides after you have the achievement. It is entirely personal preference. But when you're in a zone, you can look around on the map and see the different tortured gifts. You'll find one that's orange. That is the tortured gift of mysteries, and that is the one, in my opinion, that rewards the best loot. But again, it costs 250 per, so completely and utterly personal preference what you want to do. I have a crap load of these hearts that I saved up way more than I even needed, and we basically had over 2,000 of the cinders just from doing this. So this is the most efficient farm, but if you don't have the hearts, or you don't have a team, or you just can't handle the boss, the Blood Maiden, then you obviously just want to go around the map and do whatever you can, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, in terms of killing packs of mobs, opening chests, looking for treasure goblins and the silent chests, or the whisper chests, whatever you want to call them, the ones that require a key to open, and just try to get as many cinders as possible. Thankfully, we don't have to get 10,000 cinders in a single Helltide, otherwise that would be insane. So, I appreciate you watching the video. Hopefully it helped you out. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If the video helped you out, smash that like button and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you never miss another video. Till then, my brothers and sisters, thy legion, stay frosty.